Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the broadcast. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Thursday, October 18th, 2018 edition of the broadcast. Thank you very much for being with me here for another show. Lots to get into with you here tonight, lots to talk about. Lots of questions I've been getting about certain topics, so I'll comment on those, give you my take on those here tonight on the show. It's good to be with you. And we definitely do have a lot to discuss here tonight. Where to begin? I don't know. Let's see. I'll get to that in a second. That's some... Lots of stuff popping up in the news now. Lots of stuff. I mean, it's. I just got lots of interesting stuff. It's not even a situation of where I'm trying to gloat or anything. It really is just a case of stuff I've been telling you about for many years, and it's stuff that is now making itself apparent to more people. And, it's just stuff I've been yelling about for years, man. It's wild, and you see it in the news, and you see it, and you just know people don't understand why it's important, because it just seems like another, one of the everyday different topics or different talking points that mainstream media puts out or whatever. But more and more, and you start to begin to see a confluence of all these different topics and things that I've been talking about and making films about for many years, making themselves apparent. It's very interesting. So I definitely want to get in and talk about all that. But the first thing I want to talk about, in case you didn't already know about it or see it or know that it's up, I know that not everybody sees everything that gets posted on YouTube or Facebook or all that. But yesterday was the release of the trailer for my newest film, The Spellcasters Volume 2. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The trailer has been uploaded. It is now on YouTube. If you have not seen it yet, go and watch it right now. And thanks to everybody who sent emails to me about the trailer and what they thought about it. And yeah, people are flipping the fuck out. People are flipping the fuck out. Yeah, it's, man, some heavy shit, y'all. Didn't tell you. It really is. But that as I had mentioned in previous broadcasts, that trailer is also like the intro to the film. There'll be a little bit more to it than that, but that's pretty much as you'll see it in the film. But yeah, I mean, this is just quality wise, and I mean, it's everything about it. Each successive film steps up and up and up, and these two newest Spellcasters 2 and 3 will be the continuation of that. So thanks to everybody out there who has watched it and sent messages or left comments, whatever else. And I've got about 7 to 9 days worth of work left, estimated from right now. So as I said before, when you see the trailer appear, that means probably about a week until the film will be ready. So that is indeed the case. So I'm getting excited about that. But again, the problem is, as we talked about in the last show, the same problem we discussed in the last show is still a problem now, and we have not had any progress since then. So again, at the first of the month, we had $700 we didn't raise for the operating costs of the month. When we don't reach that, it doesn't just go away. We still have that, because that's still stuff we have to pay for our monthly operations here. You know, nothing's free. Nothing is free in your life. Nothing's free to do this. And all the resources it takes to do all this stuff every month. And so the problem is right now, we had $700 that we didn't reach the first of the month. We've since gotten $300 in total all month and haven't gotten any in quite a bit. And so since last week, we've had $400 that we've needed to raise, just like I told you in the last two little updates I did. So the problem is now we're at the point where we've got to, I mean, we're beyond, I've got this stuff extended and delayed and pushed back as long as I can. But the problem is now this is built up from the first of the month till now. So now we have a grand total of $600 of our operating costs for, basically what I did is I rolled this stuff over from last month into this month. So our current operating cost fundraiser page reflects that. As I told you, there's all kinds of perks on there that you can check out and get into, some that are like this month only, especially the thing if you contribute $400, you get the lifetime downloads for life and all that. That's a really good deal. We've offered that before, and a couple of people got it in the past, but this is the first time we've offered it in a few months, and we're not going to be offering it again for a while. So if you want to get in on that this month, this is the time to do that. That way, whenever new films come out, like Spellcasters or whatever else, you know, you contribute your $400. All you have to do is say, okay, I get the lifetime downloads. Please send me Spellcasters 2, Spellcasters 3, whatever. And that's what you do. And you'll get those for life. Anytime you email me, hey, I need this download link, that download link from the store, you got it after that. So, so here's the good news. The good news is, as I said, first off, the first good news is the trailer is out. The second good news is there's about a week away or so for this film being completed. Fucking yes. The shitty news is, again, we had $400 that we had hanging over us because we didn't get the $700 total that we needed for the rest of the stuff at the beginning of the month. So now we got stuff that's due now combined with the stuff that was already due. The good news about this is, as long as we raise the $600 by tomorrow, we won't have anything else. We won't have any other fundraising goals for another couple of weeks until November 1st. So as long as we can reach this, again, the film, that's the whole caveat here. You know, the lights and the internet and stuff are about to be turned off here at the studio real fast if we don't pay this stuff. And then I'm going to be left being able to do nothing and have no productivity and not be able to get this film done. So again, the film coming out in a week is going to be dependent on us raising the $600 minimum by tomorrow. But again, the good news of that is we're not going to have any more goals. You won't hear me. If we raise this tomorrow, we get 6 people to pitch in $100. One, or maybe one person that wants to get the lifetime downloads thing and contributes $400. And, also, if you do the $400 lifetime thing for the lifetime downloads, if you already have an existing membership, you have to have an existing membership to qualify this, because I can't make accounts in our members archive thing. But if you already have a membership to the archives, the show archives membership, if you do the $400 thing for the unlimited lifetime downloads and you already have a archive membership, I'll throw in a lifetime archive membership subscription into the deal. So, but really what we need is 6 of our listeners out there in our listening audience to contribute $100 before the end of the day, before 5 p.m. Central Time on Friday. If we do that, you won't hear me have to get up here and do any more updates or any more shows for any more fundraising efforts until the 1st of next month. And that will also ensure that I'm able to get the film out and done in the next week. So this is not negotiable. This is not maybe, hopefully, in a pipe dream. No, this absolutely has to positively happen in the next 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen. So it's time to step up. I asked last time, nobody stepped up. I think we got $65 in or something. That's all we've got. And since we were already in the hole, we've got to be able to get all of this cleared off And, but again, our goal for the month is 2,100. We've raised 310 so far. 600 by tomorrow will bring us up to 910, and then we'll have roughly 1,100 or whatever left after that. But we won't have to raise any of the rest of that until the end of the month, first of next month. So again, this is great fucking news. The trailer, I got to tell you, I didn't know if I was going to put a trailer out or not, and then I guess I just decided I would. But yeah, it's just I'm really, really fucking excited about this film, and I'm really happy about the way it's turned out, and it being, I just love seeing. I don't know how to say it. Judging by just looking at the YouTube comments, I can tell you this: there's some of you out there that just totally get it, and you know what, and you know what, you kind of know what to expect, or at least you know the quality, what to expect quality wise, and what I've got coming, and you guys are very accurate with that. But then I've got other people who, it's funny, other people who comment and stuff, they don't have any idea what's coming, and you guys are the ones that are going to get kicked to the balls the hardest when you see this thing. But I get it. Look, I get it. There's so many people out there. A lot of people don't know my history, and they don't, they haven't followed all my work and followed all my films. There's so many people out there that are just repeaters. And look, there's some standard things all of us have to repeat at some point because they're truisms and they're facts and they tie into the other things. So even I sometimes have to repeat things that people already know or things that people have already talked about a lot, just because they tie into other things. But for the most part, most of the stuff that I bring to the table is uncharted territory. Nobody was talking about the CMP or making films about it or doing everyday radio shows about it at all when I first started in on that, 10 years ago or so. So, and then my Lost Secrets of Ancient America stuff. It's crazy how, I can tell you before Lost Secrets of Ancient America, nobody was paying attention to mounds and stuff like that. And I got on this thing talking about the mounds for a couple of years there and did all this research on all these ancient sites and stuff. And it's just crazy. Every day I see these news stories about now how they're excavating these mound sites. So many of them that I discussed in Lost Secrets of Ancient America that had really no interest in them at all whatsoever for many, many years until I made those films. And, again, it's fascinating to see that start to come to fruition now. And that's kind of what some of this other stuff we have to talk about here on the show tonight ties into as well. So we'll be getting into all that. So again, look, we've delayed this as long as we can, folks. But the fact of the matter is I can't do any more work. I can't go any farther with this film. And I can't put any of this off any farther unless we raise a minimum of 600 of our operating cost goal for this month. So basically, listen, that's, look at our grand total, that's it. Instead of having to try and raise all of it, it's kind of a better thing anyway, because then we won't have to try to raise all of it at the end of the month. And by then, Volume 2 will be out, and we'll be about a week or two away from Volume 3 being out. So, because I'm going to be releasing Volume 3 within 2 to 3 weeks after Volume 2 comes out, or at least that's the plan. It's not done. I've got to finish Volume 3 as well. This is 2 films here. Originally, it was going to be 1. I was trying to make a film that was like 6 or 8 hours long, and it's just fucking ridiculous to try to do that. So I've trimmed the fat and trimmed the fat and trimmed the fat and cut, and I have attempted to cut this thing down into 2 lean, mean individual films, Volume 2 and Volume 3. And that's what I've done. So, but again, Volume 2 of the trailer is out now. And definitely go and check it out, man. See what I'm cooking with here. You definitely notice the bump up in the editing and the effects and everything. And again, I do everything. Every bit of this is my handiwork. And you look at that and you go 2 minutes and 13 seconds. You don't know how many. It doesn't take 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Doesn't take 10 minutes to do. It takes days to do. You know, that's the whole thing with all this. Nobody understands. I mean, when you watch something, and it's the same thing with movies or anything, you know, you watch something, and you're just watching it, you're oblivious to how long it took just to do something on the screen. Like there was one part in Lost Secrets of Ancient America that took 3 months to do this one segment, was like 3 minutes long. I mean, it's just tedious work where you're just going back over and over and over and over and over again. And it's like precise, you know, cutting and all this stuff. And then you watch it and it just looks seamless, you know. I guess that's what good editing is. You know, you don't even see, but it literally takes days and weeks sometimes. And that trailer I had to take time out of working on the actual film and work on that trailer almost like it was a separate project, you know. And because when I do the films, I do like the intro, which, like I said, that's the trailer is the intro. But all that done, I do all that stuff separately because you can't do it all on the same thing as you're doing with your. I mean, I guess you could if you had a fucking supercomputer and unlimited RAM and all that shit. But like those graphics that you see, you know, all that stuff takes a mega amount of processing power. So you have to do all that separately. And then the files are brought in and you just bring it into your editor and cut it in with the rest of it. But I mean, just those effects and stuff like that, it takes so much processing power. I don't know why, but it takes so much processing power and the longest amount of time to do titles and edits, anything with letters on the screen over the video. I don't know why, for whatever reason, that takes the longest amount of time. Everything else, like if you don't have video that has any titles in it, like any letters or anything, you know, has any words on the screen, that's easy. That's nothing. But when you're making documentaries and you have stuff, especially stuff where you have, you know, something on the screen and you have a lower third or something on the screen that has, you know, tells you what's on the screen, or you have stuff like you see in my films where you have words on the screen and there's stuff to go along. Because, you know, oftentimes when you have information and when you have research, and I mean, unless you have a piece of video or a photograph or multiple photographs to go along with what you're describing in your dialogue, then you have to create something. And oftentimes there aren't. I've encountered this many times in my films. I mean, sometimes you get into territories of information where you're talking about stuff where there's nothing that exists you can put on the screen really widely. So you have to kind of, you know, you have to improvise. You have to make stuff up. And sometimes you have to put, you know, text and stuff on the screen. And that stuff is really what bogs down the film process and the editing process and the rendering process. That's what takes the longest, is the rendering, you know. And then, you know, oftentimes this stuff, I've rendered stuff down and double checked it a million times, right? Double checked it, looks good, no errors, everything's great. All right, render. Boom. Hit render. Renders down. You wait hours for it to render down, 12 hours or something. You come back, you check it, everything looks good. You put it on a disc or you put it on the TV or whatever to double check it, and all of a sudden there's problems. And you have to figure out what's causing that problem, because that problem didn't exist at all on the video editor, on your screen, on your computer during the editing process. So what changed between the rendering process and putting it on a screen, you know, a TV or whatever it may be after that? Because there doesn't seem to be anything apparent that should be causing any errors or any problems or something not work right. So then you have to go through and find out where the problem is, and once you do it, you have to hope you got it fixed so that when you render it down and wait for another 12 hours for it to render, it's crazy shit, man. But it's still, I mean, I'm not bitching because it's still fucking light years better than it was when I first started making films. I mean, I remember when I first started making, when I made 9/11 New World Rising, God, I made that thing on a PC, one of the The software was shit. The fucking everything was shit. The quality, just everything. I mean, it stunk, but it got a lot better really fast in the next couple, especially once I got a Mac, and that just accelerated everything really. But yeah, it's so much work. It's just such tedious work too. That's the thing about it. And it's over. I mean, by the time I get done making a film, it's like I don't even want to see it anymore. I don't even want to see it. It's like I'm done. And then I have to sit there with people. Oh, people come over like, oh, I want to watch the film. And I'm like, oh God, I don't watch anything but that right now. Because you just had to eat each and every scene. It's just you've gone over it a million zillion times. But also the other effect that has is that I noticed that part of the filmmaking is also what gives me new insights into the information, and it also is what makes me absorb and understand the information more myself. It's really that part of the filmmaking, it's not just the research part. The research part of it, end of it does too, and the writing and everything. That's really the main thing where you kind of become an expert on the subject, but you really become an expert on whatever subject you're doing during the whole process of filmmaking, because by the time you've done all the steps and you've gone through it, you've seen every inch and every piece of information and heard it so many times over and over again that sometimes you start to, think about things as you're putting this together and go, wait a minute, I didn't think of this till now, but what if this and this, what if this person connects to this stuff too somehow? And then you look something up and you're like, in 2 seconds of looking, you're like, holy fuck, how did I miss that? Of course that person's, and all of a sudden you've got a whole new thing here, a whole new connection of information that's important to your story that you didn't even see until now. And you're in the fucking, final editing phase. You're for all intents and purposes, you're almost at the finish line. But because as you've done the research, you've done the writing, you've done the voiceover work, you're putting all the film and all this stuff together, right? Most people go, okay, that's it, it's over, that's done, you've done it all, that's it, final product, whatever. What I have not been able to put into words to people to make people understand is that exact thing I just described to you, and how that has happened to me 500 times. And what am I supposed to do? Just go, oh, well, fuck that? I can't do that. I'm a researcher, man. It's what I do. If during the course of the final editing of a film, I find some other fucking thing that connects that I missed that I didn't know about before, I can't ignore that. I got to fucking go grab it. I got to put it together. I got to research it out. I got to write it. And that's what I'm talking about truly down the rabbit hole, and how far truly down the rabbit hole I've been in the course of the process of making these two films now, Volume 2 and Volume 3. It's one, and then trying to not only while you're trying to wrap your mind around some of this shit is mind blowing, and I don't mean that as just a throwaway descriptor, folks. Truly and really mind blowing, even for me and it's hard to blow my mind anymore. So I'm trying to wrap my own mind around these new fucking ground destroying pieces of info that I'm finding, going, holy shit. I'm trying to wrap my own mind around it while simultaneously trying to research it all out and then incorporate it back into the pre-existing framework of what I've already created. Now, if you had to deal with that once, that's a problem. You had to deal with it twice. Fuck, I've had to deal with it 500 times since I've been making these films, folks. Because you're in the you're here, you're doing this work, you're on this subject, I'm working on this, I'm not even thinking about this other subject over here, and then all of a sudden, you're putting it together or something else, and then you see you're like, wait a minute. Didn't somebody say something about this person over here in this completely unrelated segment of the film when we were talking about this other piece of information over here, this other case, completely other? But yet here we are in this other separate case, this other person or this other end of the conspiracy or whatever. And all of a sudden, one of these other people over here mentions a name that somebody else mentioned in this unrelated case. And you're going, wait a second here. This can't be coincidence. Then you start pulling the strings back on that, and you're like, holy shit. How does that connect? How did I miss that? And this brings me to the point of one of the subjects I want to talk about today, because everybody's been asking me, sending me stuff about this, especially people who've been listening to my show and following my work for a long time. What's in the news right now with the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi? Yeah, folks, I've been screaming about the Khashoggi stuff for over a decade. I've been screaming about it and going off about it longer than anybody else, trying to get people to understand it. That's why I put that information in my Secret Right films, the stuff with the CMP and Alex Jones and Genesis Communications Radio Network and all the whole raft of things that Adnan Khashoggi, all the publishing firms, all the stuff he ran, they were all named Genesis. And how he gave that Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus guy his publishing deal, and it was on Genesis Publishing. People try to, Jones tried to deny there was any connection between Genesis Communications Radio Network and the Saudi Khashoggi-owned Genesis thing. And then, of course, the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus became a 9/11 truther and became a regular, was on Alex Jones' show multiple times. I covered all that in Secret Right, too. Listen, I've been screaming about Adnan Khashoggi and all this stuff for over a decade, folks. The whole time I've been on air. And I just have always felt like people just don't get and don't understand this connection. He pops up and is connected to everything within this conspiracy, folks. There I was doing Spellcasters 1 a couple of years ago. He pops up again. I told you in that film, again, that film came out before the elections, before Trump was elected. I told you Trump was going to be elected. I showed CMP connections in that. And I've told you about his connections to Adnan Khashoggi. Adnan Khashoggi was the richest arms dealer in the world, ladies and gentlemen. His entire family, the entire Khashoggi family, they have all been connected to the CIA for over 5 decades. Okay? Everybody's been asking me to comment on this newest thing, the missing. Listen, all you got to know, I can sum this up real easy for you. Adnan Khashoggi died last year. Ever since Trump was first elected, they've been doing stuff with the Saudis. Somebody had to pick up that arms dealing slack. Okay? Listen, all the whole Khashoggi family are all CIA connected. These guys are all operatives. They're all on the payroll. I told you, God, it's this Khashoggi stuff blows my mind because it's always there. It's always ever present in just about everything that I research. And just about every single thing that I research and all the films that I make, it's just ever present. It's like I can't get away from it because it's constantly there, but it's important. But it continues to be there, and it continues to be something, again, that I don't think enough people understand. Now, this current thing going on, and this is really this is why Trump is kind of trying to tread lightly on this whole thing. This was an arms deal. This was a CIA arms deal gone bad, is what this was. Saudis got pissed about the price and fucking found out about his CIA connections and probably already knew about his father's CIA connections. And like I said, I mean, this stuff even ties in, the Khashoggi stuff even ties in with my newest Spellcasters 2 and 3 stuff, with his connections to all these different musicians. And I told you about, especially with the Freddie Mercury stuff. I mean, the whole Freddie Mercury thing is a rabbit hole. Not going to have time to go down the whole rabbit hole of the Freddie Mercury thing in Spellcasters films, I don't think, but I'll try to at least touch on a little bit of it. But it's just, that whole thing's a rabbit hole in and of itself, and it involves the Russians, and it involves, the Russians trying to, during the 80s and the Cold War, so trying to, the creation of fake AIDS and all this stuff in order to blame it on as an American weapon when it was actually the Russians that were doing it. And then, of course, Freddie was really trying to hint at the most that he could and leave clues to all this, because he had figured it out. And that's why in the next to the last album they ever did, as he was dying in 1989, they did an album called The Miracle. What's interesting about that record is that prior to that record, all other Queen records up until The Miracle have all songs that are written on the albums credited to the individual songwriters. So, for instance, if you have if it's a Freddie Mercury composition, if it's Love of My Life, it will say written by Freddie Mercury, words of music, whatever. If you got, a song by Brian May, it'll be like, We Will Rock You, written by Brian May. For reasons never quite revealed, other than they just kind of blame it on they just kind of say vaguely, well, they kind of say it was solidarity within the band or whatever. That's a nice thing for the press. But for the first time with the Miracle album, they made the decision to have all of the songs on the album not be accredited. They did this on the last two records they did, the Miracle and Innuendo. But on those two records, instead of having each, whatever individual songs are written by each individual person, they just accredited all the songs to Queen. And I believe the reason they did this is so, clearly, for not all the time, but I mean, oftentimes you would have songs that Brian May would write songs, and sometimes he would sing his own songs. But a lot of the time, Brian May would write songs and Freddie Mercury would sing them. But the perception, especially then back in those days, a lot more than it is now, the internet and stuff, a lot more information is available. But the perception used to be with musicians, whoever you saw singing a song, people just assumed that person wrote that song. Essentially, they sang it with conviction and it was believable. But from the Queen catalog, a good example of that would be a song like The Show Must Go On off of Innuendo. People hear that and they hear those lyrics and they think, oh, gosh, this is, obviously this is Freddie, he knows he's dying, so he's saying The Show Must Go On. But that song was written by Brian May. There's a lot of songs like that. So, I don't know. I think they didn't want they wouldn't want anyone to know who actually wrote, and maybe he didn't write that. We don't really know. What I've heard is that it was written, that the song Khashoggi Ship on the Queen album The Miracle was written by Freddie Mercury. But again, we don't really know because it wasn't really accredited. And I think they did that on purpose. I think they did that so they could hide the mask who truly wrote that song. I think that song Khashoggi Ship on the Miracle album I think it was a clue. I think that's a clue that's left. Especially when you look into that ship and listen and you go read the lyrics to the song. And there's something, let me look up those lyrics. There's something in there about Freddie Mercury or whoever the person is in the story. It's Freddie singing it from his own perspective in that song. But about partying on Khashoggi's ship and running into some big guy, and this guy pulled out a gun and wanted to arrest him, and it's just some weird kind of thing. But then, of course, you look into that, and you look into that ship, and you look into the stuff that went on there, and these massive parties. I mean, Freddie Mercury was hinting at something there. Because why would you write a song called Khashoggi Ship? I mean, look at that last name. Is that a very musical title or very musical name? No, of course it's not. You would only do that if you were trying to leave clues about something. Let me find these lyrics here. Everybody drank my wine, you get my drift, and then we took a holiday on Khashoggi ship. We all had a good time. They was all so sexy. We was bad. We was blitzed. All in all, it was a pretty good trip. This big bad sucker with a fist as big as your head wanted to get me. I said, go away. I said, kiss my ass, honey. He pulled out a gun and wanted to arrest me. Now listen, no one stops my party. It sounds like it's just, I mean, it's kind of, Queen didn't really write party songs. So, you know what I mean? They never wrote party songs. They didn't write songs about party and let's party and have a good time. It wasn't, it wasn't their thing. So there was something here. I mean, you can read these lyrics are just weird. We were phased. We was pissed, just having a total eclipse. I mean, there's something was being encoded here towards the end. I think this was a clue of where to look and to see, okay, if somebody in the future is trying to figure all this out, this is the clue. And of course, we know who ended up with that ship, Donald Trump. Donald Trump was doing business with Khashoggi back in the 1980s. All this stuff about, Trump being a regular guy and, he's not a politician. Listen, man, politicians are at a lower level than Trump. Trump even told you himself, he even said, remember some months ago when he said, all these people like Alex Jones talks about the elite and this and all people are talking about elite this and elite that. I'm more elite than these elite people are. I mean, he said that himself and he's not lying. These guys, these big business, man. The Trump's tied in with the mafia, with the mob, with the illegal gun trade, with Khashoggi, all of that stuff. I think the Sultan of Brunei had it for a while, and then Trump got it from him. Either way, that Khashoggi ship ended up with Trump. And, of course, also, I mean, look at how many of his relatives now, not just Adnan Khashoggi, look how many of his relatives now are always at the heart of some CIA connected fucking operation. I mean, remember, what was that, 8-9 years ago? The underwear bomber thing, remember that? Where that guy supposedly had bullshit in his underwear, it never blew up. But then after that, you couldn't take an open water bottle and you couldn't take open, you remember that? They cracked down on all that shit. That was all because of the underwear bomber thing. Look that up. In fact, I'll look it up right here with you, and then you can do it. Let's type underwear bomber, and then let's type Khashoggi. Where is it? Oh, now I can't find it. Anyway, you can look it up. That underwear bomber guy was one of fucking Khashoggi's cousins, relatives, or something. I mean, yet again, another sheep-dipped CIA fucking operative. And then you had Dodi Fayed, remember him? The lover of Princess Diana. That was his cousin. The one that died in the car with Princess Diana. We know who killed her. Khashoggi was said to have been connected to every major world event going back to even before the Kennedy era, something like that. Even before Bay of Pigs era. Missing Saudi journalist, and here it is. Now they're talking about it. It's in the news now. Missing Saudi journalist Jamal. Oh, come on. Can't just fucking click on something now. I have an article without 15,000 fucking things pop up. This is even worse than the old days. Remember at Idiocracy when the whole screen was a fucking pop-up? That's where we're at now. What the fuck? Missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi is nephew of a billionaire arms dealer and second cousin of Princess Diana's lover, Dodi Fayed. The journalist who mysteriously vanished in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul was the nephew of a billionaire arms dealer who once sold a yacht to Donald Trump. Jamal Khashoggi, 59, is thought to have been tortured, murdered, and dismembered by a 15-strong team of Saudi agents, though the investigation is ongoing. His uncle, Adnan Khashoggi, who died last year at the age of 81, was reputed to be the richest man in the world in his prime, with a net worth of up to $4 billion in the early 1980s. After a succession of business failures and hunted by the law, he was forced to sell the $70 million super yacht, which appeared in a Bond film, Never Say Die Again, to Mr. Trump. The vessel, thought to have been the best yacht in the world at the time, included a pâtisserie? I don't even know what that is. Something that's French and is above my pay grade. A hair salon, a cinema, an operating theater, a disco with laser beams that projected Mr. Khashoggi's face. That's creepy. Its cabins were lined with chamois leather and bird's eye maple, and the bathroom finished in onyx, which was handcrafted by an Italian master craftsman. Mr. Trump said at the time, "I was buying a great piece of art." The lavish power symbol had accommodation for 52 people on a helicopter landing pad to access the shore. It was the scene of extravagant parties before the arms dealer fell on harder times. Some of the most famous and powerful people in the world had partied there. On one occasion, 5 heads of state, 3 of them kings, were being entertained aboard. So again, you could see why they would have wrote the song about partying on Khashoggi's ship. I guess now we know why they did that. Kings on there, again, we're talking elite of elite here. But it was not just a place of pure pleasure. The 150 telephones were used to arrange arms deals and commodities trades that were signed in international waters, freeing the parties from national law. There you go. That's now you start to get into some of the murky stuff I've dug into with the Freddie Mercury thing. Freddie overhearing something, he wasn't supposed to hear. At the height of his wealth and renown, Mr. Khashoggi was a household name around the world, spending $250,000 a day. His conspicuously glamorous lifestyle was the talk of gossip papers, and he often rubbed soldiers with not soldiers. He didn't rub soldiers. Well, maybe he did. Maybe he did rub soldiers with celebrities. Let's just say he rubbed soldiers with celebrities. Some people call their junk the soldier, so, what am I going to say? I pulled my soldier out and Khashoggi rubbed it. What are you going to do? It was the 80s. It was a party, Often rubbed shoulders with celebrities. One of his daughters from his first wife, Peterina, was revealed in 1999 to actually be the love child of disgraced conservative MP Jonathan Aiken. While other relatives also had powerful connections, Dodi Fayed, the lover of Princess Diana, who was killed at her side in 1997, was a second cousin of the vanished journalist, but his influence could hardly compare to that of the wealthy arms dealer. Well, of course, that's the perception they're trying to put out. They're putting out this perception that he was just some journalist, and the Saudi government, for no apparent reason, detained a American journalist who was the nephew of Adnan Khashoggi and hacked him into pieces and killed him, and the rest of this for no good reason. That doesn't make any kind of sense at all. It doesn't make any. This is the bullshit they're trying to sell to the public. These CIA operatives, folks, listen, people don't understand that there are operatives out there. It is just like you see in the movies. I mean, people out there that have covers. It's just like there are actors and their cover to the public, they just appear to be an actor. Like George Clooney. George Clooney just appears to be an actor to the general public. George Clooney is a CIA operative, has been on the CIA operative figure for over 20 years, maybe longer. I've talked about this before. It ties in with his aunt Rosemary Clooney, and they're connected all the way to the top. That's why he was running government destabilization operations into for Obama for 8 years. And then he marries a fucking, bloodline connected Zionist woman. I mean, come on. This guy, this Jamal Khashoggi guy, this whole thing about him being an American journalist at Washington Post, bullshit. That's his CIA cover. This guy is a go-between. They were probably grooming him, setting him up, and trying to make him be the new Adnan. And, they probably tried to fuck him on the price or did something. This is basically them trying to send a message to the Americans that, you're not going to fuck us on this arms deal. You're not going to fuck us on this thing. Trump inflates Saudi arms deal but stays silent on Saudi cash in his own pocket. As President Donald Trump defends maintaining close ties to Saudi Arabia, he repeatedly exaggerated by 700% the value of U.S. weapon sales to Saudi Arabia, yet he has not mentioned the amount of money Saudis have put in his own pocket. From the first days that Saudi involvement in the disappearance of U.S. resident and journalist Jamal Khashoggi became clear, Trump has attempted to downplay it. Based on pending arms sales to the kingdom, $110 billion worth of military, he said again Thursday. Those are the biggest orders in the history of this country, probably the history of the world. That number, though, is nowhere near accurate. In reality, only $14.5 billion of weapon sales have been approved by the Trump administration and Congress. The remainder is largely aspirational and years away from fruition. So says you, mainstream media. Listen, that fucking guy if anybody has zero fucks to give, it's Trump. You think that he just overinflated that and made an inaccurate statement saying $110 billion? No. What he did was he told you the truth. He gave you the accurate number. But, of course, the liberal media is going to say, well, he's just crazy because clearly you can look at here on the documentation and Congress has only approved $14.5 billion in weapon sales to Saudi Arabia. Right, because the other fucking 90-something billion is what he negotiated off the fucking books on his own. Okay? It's like people only reporting, so much income on their taxes or whatever. That's exactly the same thing here. They're only reporting $14.5 billion in sales. Really, what he did is he just fucked up and told you the real truth there. And that's also the real truth behind why they fucking murdered this guy. He was the go-between. He was the one there to negotiate a price. They sent their message back to Trump saying, here's our message to you. Here's what we feel about negotiating on that price. Trump, of course, Trump's a lowballer, dude. He's going to go in there and try to lowball everybody. That's what he does. That's what those fucking big business guys all do. They got every kind of money in the world, but they still want to fucking lowball unnecessarily when they don't need to fucking lowball. That's what they call Jewing you. I mean, sorry, I don't want to mean to offend anybody, but that's where the term Jewing you, that's where it comes from, getting Jewed. That's what fucking Trump, that's what he does. That's what all those guys do. He's like fucking Gordon Gekko, dude. They're going to Jew you. You think they don't give a fuck if you're asking a fair price. That's how these guys get to be billionaires and millionaires and everything else, trillionaires. So Trump lowballed him on the price. They cut this motherfucker up and said, look, we know what's going on here. We know this is not some journalist. We know blah, 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 this, that, and the other. We know about your connection to Khashoggi, the CIA, and the rest of it. So we want a better deal. And just to show you what kind of a better deal we want, we're going to hack this motherfucker up and send him back to you in pieces. How about that for a message? So again, this is all a part of everything I've been telling you about for years, ladies and gentlemen, why you should be concerned. This exactly proves all my points that I made years ago. I mean, the Secret Right 2 came out in 2011, folks. I showed you the connections to Jones and Adnan Khashoggi in that film, the connections to Genesis, the connection to the arms dealing, All these conspiracies. This is why I was yelling about that years ago. Why do you think all of a sudden, when Trump came into play, all of a sudden Jones goes completely lockstep in with the administration and in with the establishment? That's why they've been formulating doing this for years. So don't overlook this Khashoggi stuff. Yesterday and today, 2 days in a row, this was like top link at drudgereport.com. So I did, of course, see this, even though I got hammered with it yesterday because everybody saw it and where we sent it to me. Yes, I did see this Harper's Magazine yesterday. Nikki Haley at the Council for National Policy. Another thing that's been in the news, the resignation of U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. And now it comes out that now she's met with the Council for National Policy, so it appears they're putting her into some sort of political play. Nikki Haley at the Council for National Policy, inside the conference rooms of powers, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, speaks about working with Trump. Nikki Haley's surprising resignation on October 4th as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations fueled rumors about the underlying reasons for its suddenness and timing. Was she positioning herself for a future Senate or presidential campaign? The speculation about the 46-year-old former South Carolina governor's future was accompanied by a wave of media praise that recast her as a moderate alternative to the hyper-nationalist commander-in-chief. Nikki Haley will be missed, was how the New York Times editorial board headlined its assessment of Haley's time at the United Nations. The editors praised her as a pragmatic envoy whose role was constructive and who can exit the administration with her dignity largely intact. They went on to urge President Trump to appoint a replacement in her mold. The New Yorker, meanwhile, headlined the news as a hopeful sign for opponents of Trump. Less than a week before her resignation, now this is key. So it wasn't after, it was less than a week before her resignation from the United Nations. So this is key. Less than a week before her resignation, Ambassador Haley made a pilgrimage to a decidedly immoderate, highly secretive organization of right-wing, mostly evangelical Republican operatives known as the Council for National Policy, or the CNP. Her appearance before the group featured her last major speech before she announced that she would leave her official post. There was no public notice, no transcript. I was present as the only journalist inside the closed-door gathering right there. Who wrote this? Max Blumenthal? Yeah, he's another operative. They only ever allow 1 to 2 people in the meeting. Most of the time, the people that they allow in media-wise are always people they control and own, of course. Haley's appearance before the CNP was structured like a campaign fundraiser, opening with a prepared stump-style speech that segued into an informal question-and-answer session. She riled the crowd with boastful yarns about facing down global evildoers and revealed that she'd used the widespread perception of President Trump as erratic and unpredictable to frighten her Chinese counterparts. She once attempted to intimidate the Chinese ambassador with threats of a military invasion of North Korea, she said, warning that she had no idea what her boss was capable of. In a way, Haley had deployed a version of Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon's madman theory, holding up Trump as an unstable actor who might do anything. It seemed that she herself also genuinely had no idea what Trump would do. Haley had been scheduled to speak to the CNP for a half hour, but as she completed her scripted address and took a seat for an off-the-cuff Q&A with Tony Perkins, the CNP's president, she appeared in no hurry to leave, lapping up the council's adulation. Haley stayed over her time for an extended series of candid and at times disturbing recollections of Trump's campaign of maximum pressure against North Korea. She began by recounting a debate with the president on his planned remarks before the UN General Assembly in September 2017. When she learned that Trump planned to denigrate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as Rocket Man, she said she urged him to remove the line. I told the president, this is the UN. It's a little more formal of a setting than a campaign rally. Haley remembered holding back laughter, but Trump insisted that he liked the ring of the insult. So I said, okay, Mr. President, you're the boss. She said that during a meeting with the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, a few hours after Trump's tirade, the African leader casually referred to Kim as Rocket Man. The exchange was clear proof in her mind of Trump's masterful salesmanship. While learning on the job at the UN, Haley said she sought out Henry Kissinger as her personal foreign policy mentor. Wow. Even if you did that, why would you admit to it? Meeting with him every 2 months to absorb his lessons. Yeah. Well, how to be a tyrannical, bloodthirsty, murdering sack of shit who's owned by the fucking Rockefellers. During a tense diplomatic standoff with North Korea, she appeared to have embraced a version of Kissinger and Nixon's notorious madman theory. It was September, blah, 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 blah. North Korea just embarked on its 6th nuclear test. Blah, 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 blah. This is a bunch of bullshit. But anyway, with her speech to the CMP, Nikki Haley was following in the footsteps of the last 2 Republican presidents. In his 1999 address to the CMP, George W. Bush reportedly promised that he would appoint only anti-abortion judges to the highest courts if members backed his run for president. Thank you very much. That's quoted directly from my work. At an October 2015 CMP forum, Donald Trump won over the leaders of the Christian right by emphasizing his preternatural connection with the party's resentful base of middle American left-behinds. Several CMP members would go on to serve in Trump's White House, including Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon. This October's gathering also featured a speech from Mick Mulvaney, Trump's acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who recently wiped out the entire advisory board of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau with a stroke of a pen. The CMP holds its meetings in the strictest secrecy, refusing entrance to members of the media and keeping the locations of its events private. In his opening remarks this year, Tony Perkins announced that unauthorized video and audio recordings were forbidden, joking that, quote, if you're caught, you'll be taken to a room and forced to watch Rachel Maddow. Fuck. That's sick. That's sick and sadistic. But also hilarious, and also another laugh in the face of the sheep and the idiots who don't know any better. It's funny he'd bring up Rachel Maddow, you know. I mean, look how many Jesuit-trained, Jesuit-connected motherfuckers you've got with the CMP. I detailed all that in my films. I mean, it's out the waz. And, of course, Rachel Maddow is on the left, but you look into her. Look at that, Jesuit-trained, Columbia. I mean, Rachel Maddow is as much on the CMP team and as much as with the people that are in those groups as anybody else is. So Tony Perkins just threw a little joke in there, knowing that the idiots aren't going to know that. Oh, they just see Rachel Maddow as, you know, a lefty liberal talking head that hates Republicans. Meanwhile, you know, she's a Jesuit-trained Columbian graduate. She's an operative too, and she's serving the agenda in her way for the left end, just as they're serving it for the right. But of course, you know, arrogant fucking Tony Perkins knows it. You stupid sheeple don't know that. So ha ha ha. If you're caught with making unauthorized video or audio in our secret meeting, we're going to send you in a room and force you to watch Rachel Maddow because she's the enemy. You fucking pieces of shit. We're on to you. It may be a small amount, but it won't always be a small amount. This month, however, the CMP's embargo was broken by Lee Fang. A reporter for The Intercept tipped to the event's location. Fang followed the crowd into the cavernous lobby of the Westin in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he rubbed shoulders with CMP participants. While Fang was confined to the hotel lobby, I managed to gain admittance to the CMP's hermetic inner sanctum. I owed my entree to the generosity of an anti-war conservative who has belonged for many years to the council and attempts to mobilize opposition to U.S.-led military interventions from within the organization's ranks. This summer, he submitted an application for me as his guest. I did not conceal my identity as a journalist, providing CMP staff with my full biography and personal information. Several days later, I received an email requesting a $675 contribution to the council. This is, folks, that's how they pay for their operations. $675 just for somebody to be a guest with somebody who's a member. As again, this is how they fund. That's what a lot of these groups do. They're just CIA fronts, so they can do things like, you know, overthrow politically elected leaders and stage coups and funnel weapons and drugs and rig elections. That's how they fund those type of CIA operations off the books. They get a 501c3 nonprofit designation from the government, and then boom. I received an email requesting a $675 contribution to the council, which operates as both a nonprofit and a 501c4 political action committee. As soon as the check was cashed, I was ushered into the inner sanctum of the right for a few hours at least. I arrived at the conference after a panel on the, quote, deep state, featuring James O'Keefe, the co-creator of the infamous Acorn video, and Tim Fitton, Judicial Watch president, had concluded. Oh, some more fucking alt-right clowns we now know connected to the CMP. As I settled into a seat near the back of the Weston's Grand Ballroom, a who's who of the evangelical far right filled into the spacious auditorium. To my right sat Carol Swain, the African-American Vanderbilt University political science professor who blamed a devil's brew of identity politics and multiculturalism for the mainstreaming of white nationalism. Jenny Thomas, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, was greeting old friends a few rows away. Nearby, I spotted Star Parker, a self-proclaimed former welfare cheat, who named her book Pimps, Whores, and Welfare Brats and recently branded the Democrats the party of the Antichrist. Frank Gaffney, who has raised millions to conduct an Islamophobic crusade, who helped orchestrate Trump's Muslim travel ban, strode into the ballroom where he was set to deliver on a panel alongside a collection of Cold War-era hardliners. One of the few Catholics present amid the evangelicals was Frank Pavoni, a fanatically anti-abortion priest who once filled himself placing an aborted fetus on an altar while imploring followers to vote for Trump. And then there was Kenneth Starr, the former independent counsel and author of the Lascivious Starr Report, which was in part drafted by Brett Kavanaugh, arriving at the CMP to hawk his new memoir of the Clinton investigation. Wondering if I was the only wandering Jew in this evangelical house, I flipped through the CMP membership directory and found Joel Chernoff, leader of the Messianic Jewish Alliance of America. Messianic Jews are not actual Jews, however. They worship Jesus while dressed in traditional Jewish garb, blowing shofars and singing their Messiah's praises in Hebrew. Hoping to deepen evangelical support for Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has partnered with Chernoff and his allies in the Alliance for Israel Advocacy to lobby on Capitol Hill against all obstacles to Israel's annex of the occupied Palestinian West Bank and East Jerusalem. Tony Perkins opened the meeting by summoning everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. He emphasized the word stand for effect, making a not-so-subtle jab at the take-a-knee protest against police brutality that had become familiar on NFL sidelines. Besides serving as president of the secretive CMP, the clean-cut, smooth-talking Perkins has previously headed up the Family Research Council, which is another one of these CMP-connected groups, in Washington, transforming the outfit into the vanguard of the Christian right. Under Perkins, the FRC became a factory of anti-gay and anti-abortion policies at the state and federal level. The day before its conference, the CMP distributed a press release explaining that its leadership had chosen to meet in Charlotte to stand in solidarity with North Carolina over political correctness. This was a reference to a Republican bill introduced into the state legislature in 2016 to override a Charlotte City Council ordinance requiring private businesses to maintain gender-neutral bathrooms. Also among the featured speakers, the CMP junketed into town was Jack Phillips, the Colorado baker who won a Supreme Court case this year after refusing to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple on religious grounds. As the meeting got underway, the excitement surrounding the conflict over Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court was palpable. Handpicked by the right-wing Federalist Society and subsequently accused of sexual assault, Kavanaugh was the hero of the hour. During a session of member introductions, one CMP member announced there would be a private reception the following evening to toast a glass of beer for the Bud Light-loving belligerent who the evangelicals devoutly believe will enact their agenda on the court. At noon, Haley appeared at the lectern to a roaring ovation. Blah, blah, blah. The rest of this is blah. Haley avoided mentioning her special relationship with Saudi Arabia at the CMP, focusing instead on her relentless one-woman campaign to protect another Middle Eastern company from scrutiny from its serial human rights abuses. A diplomat who was present for several meetings with members of Trump's foreign policy team over UN-related matters told me that Haley formed a personal vendetta with the General Assembly, voted to condemn Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Here we go. We're all back to Zionist agendas again. Here we go. Again, another thing I've told you about the fucking CMP for years. This is the way they get funding in. This is the way they fund Zionist agendas off books. This is the way they do it. By the way, last week, Jesus Christ, what a shit. I didn't even have time to even comment on the shit that happened last week. My God. What a shit show last week was. They had like mental health day or something last week or something, and like that day or the day after, I don't remember what it was. Literally, you had that was when Kanye did his little fucking shit show at the White House. And it was also that same day that Roseanne Barr was on the Joe Rogan show. Did you guys watch that shit show? My fucking God, what a shit show. What a shit show. Holy fucking shit. I mean, she sits there in that whole show. I really honestly can say I didn't understand. I thought I understood her. I understood her a little bit, but I didn't understand her completely until I watched that Joe Rogan show. Now I get her completely. She's a fucking Zionist piece of shit. That's what Roseanne is. So listen to the shit that comes out of her mouth during that show. I'm not racist. I don't even see color. I'm a Jew. Every 2 seconds she's saying, okay, we get it. You're a fucking Jew. You're an Ashkenazi anyway. How many times is she talking about going to the synagogue and the thing? None. Okay? Listen to all the Zionist shit. So basically she says that the reason she called that the Planet of the Apes thing about that woman was because something about that woman did something that protected Iran or something. Basically, she, and she's dogging Iran and the rest. She is a fucking Rothschild Zionist piece of shit. You want to talk about the height of mental illness? I had 2 screens going. I had the fucking Joe Rogan, Roseanne Barr thing on one screen, and on another screen, I had Kanye in the White House, and I had them both going on at once. That was the height of mental illness, dude. I thought my fucking brains were going to leak out my asshole. Holy shit, you want to talk about the height of bat shit. Do it. Do it. Seriously. If you really want to fucking throw some fuel on it, eat a gram of mushrooms or like 2 hits of acid and then throw that on. You want to talk about mindfuck. You come back from that intact and you are the champion. That was the height of mental illness right there. My fucking got the height of mind control. You want to see what mind control looks like, buddy? Put on that fucking Rogan and Roseanne Barr interview on one screen and put fucking Kanye's rant at the White House with Trump on another. That is the height of mind control right there. And Joe also goes on to say on that show that, mind control doesn't really exist. The government doesn't do mind control at all. It doesn't come from, yeah. And we know why you'd say that too, Joe. You T-boy. Yeah, Joe's a butt boy too. Why do you think he didn't take any of the, notice when after Jones got caught looking at the tranny porn? You would have thought Rogan would have said something about that, or, he says he's a comedian. You thought that'd be something I think would be funny to make a joke about. Of course, he doesn't say anything. Everybody knows that about Joe Rogan. That's been a fucking thing for years. Of course, that's why he would be friends with fucking Jones. All those guys, man. Jones, fucking Charlie Sheen. They're all fucking secretly butt boys, dude. They're okay. The wives and all that shit are shills. Those guys take it in the butt. They like taking it up the butt. They like fucking other dudes in the butt, and they have shill marriages and shill relationships and the rest of it to cover for what they really want to do, so people don't find them out, so they can pimp their agendas and the rest of it. That's what the fuck they do. That's what the real elite people do at the tip top of the fucking pyramid. That's what goes on. That's how it goes down. That's the end. Oh, we got some more stuff here in this article talking about the CMP, so let's continue on that. Haley's lonely fight against Israel's enemies was calculated to appeal not only to the Likudnik GOP donors who saw the self-proclaimed Jewish state as their fortified home, but also to the evangelicals who viewed the country as a landing pad for the Messiah. These include Tim LaHaye, a CMP veteran. He's not a CMP. You call a CMP vet? I mean, these people get paid, folks. They get paid $1,000. Harper's.org. Harper's Collins. Blah 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 blah. I don't get paid for this shit, and I got more like, motherfucker. He started the CMP with funding from from H.L. Hunt. That's like calling the guy that started McDonald's, a McDonald's fry cooking veteran. Come on. CMP veteran who co-authored the best-selling Left Behind series, Armageddon fantasy novels that identify the UN Secretary General as the Antichrist. If the admiring treatment Haley received from the CMP was any indication, she could count on support from rapture-ready pastors across the country. Along with a flock of grassroots Republicans, they shepherd to the polls each election day. Not long after Haley left the auditorium, I was ejected from the CMP's conference on the personal orders of its president, the eagle-eyed Tony Perkins. He recognized me because I had written about him in articles and in my book, Republican Gomorrah. In the lobby, Perkins explained to me that the meeting was forbidden to members of the media, and especially to me. He had apparently not forgotten the article I published in 2005 that reported his signing of a check of $82,500 to David Duke, former Ku Klux Klan leader and failed Republican gubernatorial candidate, to purchase Duke's mailing list on behalf of another GOP campaign. Perkins objected stringently to my reporting, but when I asked him to explain what I had gotten wrong, he said nothing of substance. So that's funny. But that also shows you how easy it must be. We got to get on the stick of this. Somebody does. I can't do everything myself, but listen. Pay the $625 or whatever. We need to figure out, we need to get that. See, that's how you get in. So you got to get somebody who's already a member to get you in as a guest. Pay the $600. I mean, that person got all the way in and then got spotted by Tony Perkins and got ejected. That's a little weird. But I guess it just goes to show you, too, that it is possible. So, anyway, there it is. Hey, listen, as I said at the beginning of the broadcast, folks, we got to have a minimum. We need 6 people, $100 each. Or one person at $400 and 2 people at $100 each, whatever. Then we won't have any more fundraising goals until the first of the month, folks. And then we'll be a week away from this film out. We have to reach this goal tomorrow. Everybody pour everything you can in the next 24 hours right now. As soon as we reach this goal, I'll update with another show. But listen, we got to keep the lights and keep everything going here, folks, because we're so close to the finish line now. We can't fail. Let's do this. I love you all. We'll talk again soon. Take care.